this section, we are going to be talking about finding the domain and the range. Okay, the domain is the set of all first coordinates of the function or the graph, and in other words, that's going to be your x's. And the range is going to be your y values or coordinates. So when we are looking at the graph that's on the left side of the screen, we have a set of points. So before I start actually answering the questions that are on this problem, I'm just going to list out the x, y coordinates of all of these all of these points, starting from the left side and going to the right side. Okay, so the first point that's on the left is going to have an x coordinate of -4 and a y coordinate of +5. Okay, moving across from the left side to the right, the very next point is going to have an x coordinate of -3 and a y coordinate of 4. Next point, x coordinate -2, y coordinate 4, -1, oh, excuse me, that's wrong, y coordinate 3, so -2, 3, then -1, 2, 0, 3, 1, 4, and then that last point to the farthest right is at 2, 5. Now, I'm actually going to use these points to answer this question. Okay, the first question on this particular problem says to find f of 2. So if I am finding f of 2, that means to go through these points from the graph and find what's inside here. That's always what your x is. So I'm going to look at these points that I have written out and find where the x is 2, which is this last point here. What is the y that goes with it? In other words, what is that output? Or when x is 2, what is y? It would be 5. The next part of this question is going to ask you what is the domain. Now remember, here's our domain. It's going to be the x coordinates of all of these points. So the domain of this particular problem, you would just list out all of the x's. So let's see, I have -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. So again, I just went to all of the points that I have listed out, and I have listed their x coordinates. Now, the C part of this question says find any x values for which f of x equals 4. So when f of x equals 4, what does that mean? F of x is another way to say y. So in other words, what are the x values when your y is 4. So let's go through and look at all of these points and look for where the y is 4. So that would be here. Going through it, there's another one. So those 2 points, the y is 4. So what are the x values at those points? So the first one is negative 3, and the other one is 1. So those are the values. When the y is 4, your x's are negative 3 and 1. Then the last part of the question is to find what the range is. So in other words, I am listing all of the y values. Sometimes they will repeat, and if you have any repeating values, you don't need to use them twice. So starting with that first point, I have 5. Next point's y is a 4. Next one's a 3. Next one's a 2. Then the next one's 3 again, but I already have 3. And then I already have the last 2 y values also, 4 and 5. So the range of this would be 5, 4, 3, and 2. Okay, so here is another problem asking questions about domain and range and finding different values. But this one is different because unlike the last problem, it's not just a group of points separated. It's a continuous graph. These arrows that are on either end of the graph means it's going on forever and ever to the left and the right. So the first thing it wants me to find is f of 2. So remember, what's inside the parentheses, this number here is your x coordinate. So what I want to do is go to the graph, find where the x is 2, and think about everywhere along this dotted line, the x coordinate would be positive 2, correct? Everywhere, because I have gone to the right 2. So let's look at where it actually crosses the graph. It's crossing the graph at this point here. What is the y value of that point? So when you trace it over to the y-axis, you will see that that y value would be positive 3. The domain of this function. So you read a graph kind of like a book from the left side to the right side on each page. This arrow right here means that is going forever that way and the other side is going forever that way. And it includes all the points in between, right? There's no separation. There's no gaps from the left side to the right side. It's going to the left forever and it's going to the right forever, which means your domain is going to be all the real numbers on the number line. Okay? Now, the next part of this question says any x values when f of x equals 1. And remember, f of x is the same thing as saying y. So what I want to do now, let's see if I can change colors. So I want to know where the y is 1. So going on the, right here, everywhere along this green dotted line that I am putting on here, the y value would be 1. So what I need to do is find where that the graph that I'm looking at. It's touching it here and here. I need to know the x values at those 2 points. The first x where it crosses is going to be 4. It touches it again where the x is 6. Then the last part of this is going to ask me what the range is. Now, the range is the y values of this graph. Now, you'll notice, unlike the domain that went to the left and right forever because of those arrows going to the left and right forever, this graph actually doesn't go. The range is your y's, and it's kind of like looking from the bottom of the graph to the top. So the very lowest point is this point here. It doesn't go below that point, which means your y values start there. They do go up forever from there, but that is their lowest point. So your range is going to be that y is only greater than or equal to the y value at that point, and the y value at that point is 0.